Once again, the last few videos asked you to pick from this pile which kits you'd like to see next, and you guys wanted this right here, which is the Real Grade Perfect Strike Gundam. So I thought I had reviewed the standard version of the Real Grade Strike, that would be the Isle Strike, but it turns out that I did not. But yeah, either way, this isn't going to be a full review of the actual Real Grade Strike Gundam. That has been out for quite some time, so I'm only going to talk about what is in this box that makes it different. And once again, this is essentially a combination of what came with the standard Real Grade Isle Strike, as well as some of the bits that came with the Real Grade Sky Grasper, and some more to make it the perfect strike. Anyway, once again, when it comes to a premium Bandai release, this video right here would not be possible without those absolutely fantastic people over at Buyee. So if you want one of these of your own, you can get yours through Buyee, just like I did. There's a link down there in the description, and if you sign up through that link, you'll get 1,000 yen off your first purchase. Now here we go. So anyway, pretty much straight away out of the box you get this right here. This is the Perfect Strike version. This is the standard Isle Strike version. The only reason this looks a little bit different is because I've used the decals, did some panel lining, etc. So as you can see, adding all those decals, and that's not even all of them, that's just some of them, and panel lining it up, really does make a whole lot of difference. This looks so plain, almost like a high grade almost in comparison. But yeah, there's probably a million reviews of this guy out there already, so I'm just gonna get to what makes the Perfect Strike Gundam perfect. So what makes the Perfect Strike Gundam perfect? Well, if you want a kit that has absolutely ridiculously too many accessories, then this is the one for you. Just look at that! That is why I cannot do a full review of this right here. It would take forever. So yeah, in order to just run through this super quickly, what we get in the box, of course, is the standard Real Grade Strike Gundam, same as what we saw before. This absolutely huge sheet of decals and those foil detailing segments. So there is a whole lot going on here. Look at that. It makes your standard Real Grade sheet look small. That is crazy. Next up then, we've got the Isle Striker pack, but it has been beefed up in order to attach the sword and the launcher, and we've got a bunch of more battery packs right here to make up for all that energy usage. We've got this standard shield. This is exactly what you would have seen with the standard version of the Real Grade Strike. The exact same goes for the rifle right here. This is exactly the same once again as what we would have seen with the standard version of the Real Grade Strike. Same goes for the beam sabers, so we've got two beam sabers in here, boom, 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 boom. We have two variants of the beam sabers handles. These ones have a tab on the side. This is for using with those Real Grade hands, which I'll talk about in a second. Next then we have a 1/44th scale figure of, I nearly said Setsuna Fsei, whoa, Kira Yamato. Next up then, we've got the pair of Gundam Switchblades known as the Armor Schneiders. We don't just have one, we have two. Once again, these came with the standard Isle Strike version of the Real Grade. We've got a pair of holding hands, that is a left and a right. As for what's on it already, that is a pair of fists. And the last pair of hands in here are those posable Real Grade hands. These are the ones that need the tabbed handles for the beam sabers in which to hold them, because otherwise they'll fall just right out of these hands. But go on, why don't I show you? The tab goes right on in here, just like that, just not upside down. Next up then, we've got an action base. One of these did not come with the standard version of the Real Grade Strike Gundam. I'm not sure if it came with the Sky Grasper or not, because that's a kit I somehow missed out on. This does come with an action base adapter. This is slightly different to the one we would have seen with the Real Grade Strike, but I'll talk about that a bit later. Next up in here, we've got the parts from the Sword Strike Gundam. So of course this would have came with the Sky Grasper before, but now we've got this different little segment here for attaching it onto the side of the Isle Striker pack, and hey, why not? I'll just do it right now. So that just pops on to this little ball joint segment right here. Pops on like so, and that's how it attaches onto that. Next up then, we've got the shoulder segment, which is part of the Sword Strike pack. I will also mention at this point that we do get both of the backpacks from the Sword Strike and the Launcher Strike, so they are options as well, which is pretty cool. If you like a Gundam kit that you can mess around with, change around a lot, this one might be one for you. Next up in here, we've got that little claw segment, as well as the little wire part that attaches onto that. Once again, we will take a look at that in more depth later. We've got a pair of beam effects in a nice pink, looking very vigorous, I might add, especially this one. Another beam effect right here. This is for using with that big old sword. And moving now onto the Launcher Strike parts, we've got the shoulder segment with that cool Gatling. I absolutely love this. I think this is so cool. I think I might be a bigger fan of the Launcher Strike than the sword strike, but each to their own. Next up then we've got that big old launcher on that nicely articulated arm. And that's pretty much it. What do I mean pretty much it for what's in the box? There's so much in this box. So let's stick it all on. So for the most part for this review, all I'm going to be doing is assembling it into the Perfect Strike Gundam and giving some opinions on it, because there is a whole bunch of reviews out there already for the real grade strike. So everything else is just going into this here lunchbox to the side for now. So that's everything that came with the standard version of the real grade strike. So anyway, let's get to the assembly. I don't know why I zoomed in on its crotch. Anyway, let's go! So anyway, as for the Isle Striker pack, like I mentioned, what's different is this big old set of batteries around back and these two hard points here for connecting the new weapons onto. So I will mention, if you've ever seen the Master Grade Perfect Strike Gundam, it has a sliding mechanism in here. The standard Master Grade Strike has that too, but you may not know what that's for unless you actually get the extra parts to make it into the Perfect Strike or buy the Perfect Strike P-Bandai kit. But this cannot do that. This cannot transform between the regular Isle Striker pack and this Perfect Striker pack, or Perfect Isle Striker pack, or just Isle Striker pack extended, whatever it's called, seamlessly like the Master Grade can. This is a completely separate part that's new for this kit. Anyway, that just bangs onto his back like you would expect, and there's it attached. So once again, this right here is nothing new either. This would have came with the Sky Grasper kit. Little segment here, that, however, is new. Well, at least the way it functions is. So this attaches on here, can rotate around, can move around like this, and the primary point, of course, is to attach it onto this little ball joint up here. So that just pops up on here, like so. On to the next part. So that, of course, is this shoulder segment, which of course makes up part of the sword strike. So this then connects onto the opposite side. This can be a little bit on the awkward side. You pop that up there. Then you have to try and trap it in place with this here. It does not hold in place itself. Alright, then flip around to the back and stick on the other part, sandwiching it in place like so. Next is the little boomerang segment for up on the shoulder. This does come with an effect part if you want to make it into a beam boomerang, which is pretty awesome. But when not in use, that attaches up onto the shoulder. Next up then we've got this claw on a wire. To store this, you just close it up like that, pop out the wire like so, on like this, and that pops onto the back of the forearm on the same arm as the shoulder bit that's blue. So there we go, we're more than halfway there. Onto the launcher parts. So this is the launcher itself, and this has some extremely impressive articulation on this arm segment. This is pretty cool. This is my first time seeing this in, I was going to say in 1/44th scale, but I did have the misfortune to build the high-grade Perfect Strike kit. That first high-grade Perfect Strike kit. That thing was awful. But yeah, this has a bunch of moving parts, like this handle around front, and the arm we just looked at. But anyway, let's attach it. So just like we did with the sword striker part, that just attaches onto the ball on the side of the striker pack, and that base adapter is failing me something awful. Anyway, there it is, popped on. So I'm going to interrupt this review a little bit at this point to mention why I don't really want to review this kit in the full usual way that I usually do. And the reason for that is the Isle Strike Gundam, or just the real grade Strike Gundam right here, out of all the real grades I have, is probably the one, or at least one of, the worst for having ERS, which is early real grade syndrome. That means it just, well, it sheds parts more than my dog sheds hair. And my dog sheds a lot of hair. So when nothing on it is fine, but things tend to fall off or get floppy or just kind of be a bit annoying in general, I recommend a lot of glue. But this one right here with all the stuff attached to it is like playing Buckaroo on hard mode. So keep that in mind if you're buying it. So to attach the shoulder segment that came with the launcher, this is actually much easier. What we do is just pop this little segment in under there, and he's gone a bit bald. Hold on, I put that back on. And then this just sits down into that like so. So that is much simpler than the other side. So there is the real grade Perfect Strike finally complete. And I have to say, this thing does look awesome. If you stick all the decals and everything on, this will look so good for a 1/44th scale kit. But it really is a test of patience when it comes to posing it, posing the weapons, etc. The main issue I find is just this base adapter is pretty much useless, and the weight of this for a real grade is actually quite heavy, so this kind of fails hard. There's a lot of other weak aspects about this kit as well. For example, this waist will not hold, so if you do try and put it in a pose, it's going to flop back. Strike here just likes to do what he wants to do, and what he wants to do is not stay on the base, so bit irritating. So if you did have your eye on this kit and you do feel a little bit disappointed about what I'm saying about it, it's definitely not the end of the world. That is just this kit out of the box. If you're an intermediate or above level of modeler, then you'll have absolutely no problem whatsoever tightening everything up, getting everything in tip-top shape. But if you are just a straight builder, I would recommend taking a bit of a pass on it. But besides that, it does look beautiful. There's so much detail. The amount of stuff that comes in this box is incredible, so I still say if you're thinking about it, go for it. As for other options, there is the master grade variant, but the actual full boxed version of this is premium Bandai once again. It's got that special finish, so it does cost quite a bit more than you'd, I guess, kind of want to pay for something like this. That titanium finish right there may not be for everyone either. The Strike RM that makes up the main mobile suit here is fantastic, also one of my all-time favorite kits. But the weapons that come with this are a bit on the meh side. Definitely not as nice as what comes with this. They just have to attach onto a mobile suit that's a bit on the loose side. So basically it's big titanium finish and the weapons are a bit meh, but the mobile suit is solid as a rock, or a weak mobile suit with awesome detailed weapons that are pretty cool. Definitely cooler than the weapons on this. So it's a little bit of a toss-up. And of course there is the third option. That is the perfect grade perfect strike that is coming out in a couple of months. Also, I did not mean for that to happen there. That just always happens. Also, I just noticed there at the very end when I was trying to put this into a pose with all this stuff, that the hands that come with this, the holding hands, obviously did not come with the standard version of the real grade strike. So they're not actually in gray. It may not show up against the background there. I'll turn up this light, see if it helps. But these hands are black. Not gray like the inner frame, they're straight up black. So that means they do not match. They obviously came on one of the runners with the weapon. So that right there is it for the review. So if you like your kits floppy, droopy, unable to hold a pose, then this is one for you. The real grade Strike Gundam at its core has always been a bit of a weak floppy kit. It's fine when there's nothing attached to it, but once you start putting on weapons, etc., it becomes a little bit of a pain in the butt. Once you start putting on all this stuff right here, it becomes one colossal pain in the butt. I literally tried posing it there and no, it's not having it. So that means the real grade Perfect Strike Gundam gets a bronze tier from me. It's not all bad, but it's definitely a lot worse than what I would expect, when what we're getting from real grades right now is the likes of the Sazabi, the new Gundam, the Crossbone. They're all fantastic kits that this cannot hold a candle to. Anyway, if you do want one of your own because it does look lovely, it'll look even better with loads of decals. The weapons are pretty awesome looking. And once again, if you do want one of your own, there is a link down there in the description. You can get yours through Buy. That's where I got mine. If you're a new sign up on there, you get 1,000 yen off your first order. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more gunpla reviews, and I will see you next time.